Let's begin with the Geeta. O Bhagavad Gita, by which Arjuna was illumined by Lord Krishna himself, and which was composed of 18 chapters from within the Mahabharata by the ancient sage Vyasa. O Divine Mother, destroyer of rebirth, who showers the nectar of oneness upon us. O Bhagavad Gita, my affectionate mother, on thee I meditate. All the Upanishads are the cows. The milker is the cowherd boy, Krishna. Arjuna is the calf. People of purified intellect are the drinkers, and the milk is the supreme nectar of the Gita. My salutations to the Lord, who is the source of supreme bliss, whose grace makes the mute eloquent and the crippled cross mountains. Hari Om Tat Sat. Yashoda sent yesterday to the group chat a talk from Swami Sarvapriyananda. Dear Swami Sarvapriyananda. So I was watching it yesterday evening. It's and the title of it is
Seeing God in Everything.
Seeing God in Everything. Yeah, it's been a running theme here. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh.
About 3 years.
And he brings Swami Vivekananda in, of course, that's lineage. And Swami Vivekananda is a great, massively great teacher of Vedanta, of the truth and the way to the truth. And Isha Upanishad, and we discussed this, Isha Upanishad. And he quoted, I hadn't heard this, he quoted Swami Vivekananda related to the Isha Upanishad. And Swami Vivekananda had said that if all of the scriptures within Hinduism were gone, and only 1/2 of the first sutra in the Isha Upanishad remained, that would be enough.
Yes.
And that, and of course he repeats in Sanskrit, and we can play that, but all of this is to be covered over by the Lord. All of this is to be covered over by the Lord. And that's not speaking just of truth, that's speaking of sadhana. Right? So, and that's the point of the talk. That is the point of the talk. We as sadhakas must do. If we're to know the truth and live in the truth, we have to actively cover all of this over. Meaning, we have to stop seeing just the form as something independent, and we have to learn to see what's underlying the form. It's like we stop seeing this as a cup, and we see it as copper. We stop seeing the gold as a ring, and we see it as gold. In the same way, and you find it helpful, these documentaries? We'll have the next one Sunday to see the state of modern science, what they've come to, and how it's pointing to exactly what Lord Krishna is describing. Yeah, and so we're dealing with a teaching that's been with us forever, as far as we know, that's timeless. Long before the scientists had the discoveries that they have had about the nature of space and time, both, which are really pointing to and confirming exactly what. And it's amazing that I had to watch that whole series like 7 times before I finally got it. Because I was studying at the same time, and that was that moment where I said, son of a gun, this is all God. So the same is being pointed to. So it's the practice of the presence, which is really a deeper way of seeing. Breaking our head, we said yesterday, breaking our head. Really, really striving to see more deeply. And it's a beautiful commentary this morning that we'll share about this from Swami Chinmayananda. So we'll just read these shlokas, 7 through 10. We covered 7, 8, 9 yesterday, or 7 we'd covered. Whoever truly understands my power and the glory of my many continuing manifestations is certainly established in unshakable yoga. And Swamiji here adds the comment, communion with the infinite. So unshakable yoga meaning being in communion, or what's called prayer and ceasing in the Christian tradition, like that. Communion. Continue. I am the source of everything. The wise understand this and worship me with love. Understanding this, why would we worship ephemeral experiences or things that are arising from what's actually here?
Anticipate.
Right? Why would we worship money? Why would we worship a person? Why would we worship a position? Understanding this. So the wise understand this and worship me with love. Their minds always think of me. Therefore, their lives are devoted to me. They have even dedicated their life energy to me. When they talk, they always speak of me, thus uplifting one another. They're ever content and joyful. Really, and I know that some people aren't thrilled about this, but you've noticed that I'm a running theme. You've noticed that I am a running theme. I only have one thing to talk about. Have you noticed? You sit and talk about other things and I come in and the conversation changes, or you just continue and I sit quietly off somewhere else. Because there's really only one thing to talk about. Otherwise, just keep silent. Because everything we're bothering ourselves with is an effect of the one. Everything that we're ruminating about and talking about and this and that is an effect of the one.
It's like a dead end almost.
And the one is love. There's not a problem here. No accidents. So what is there to talk about?
God's grace.
So the one who gets it is quiet, except to talk about or sing the names of or such, and the life energy is dedicated. When they talk, they always speak of me, thus uplifting one another, they're ever content and joyful. And there are some who are sincerely devoted and worship me simply out of love. I bequeath them Buddhi Yoga, and through this they come to me. And that's we'll pick up the commentary here. The term Buddhi Yoga, do we remember Buddhi? It's actually D. Is what? Gopala. Buddhi is what?
Oh, the intellect.
The intellect. So really, D is the word for intellect, and Bud is the enlightened. Yeah. Therefore, Buddha. So, yeah, we knew you'd know. So, Buddhi Yoga meaning the enlightened intellect. Hello, dear.
Yes. Yeah, he's missing a leg, so
Yeah.
he's Swami Darshan.
He's been around.
Yeah.
Hello, dear. We love you. Okay. So this shloka again, and then the commentary. To the ever steadfast, worshipping me with love, I give the buddhi yoga by which they come to me. So to the ever steadfast. At some point, and again last night, there was this discussion of reason over sense, right? It feels this way. This is what these beautiful physicists are saying. It seems this way, right? It seems like this. And they were very careful about the languaging with it, right? They didn't say it is like this. They said it seems like this. But then what?
But it's not.
But it's not. And it's proven that it's not.
It goes both ways.
So then there's the question, well then how long will I continue to live a lie knowing that it's a lie? Right? I say it doesn't seem like, okay, fine, it doesn't seem like. But it is. So whose responsibility is it to fix that situation? It's the individual sadhakas. Yeah. Just like it's the individual physicist. And they'll gather together and they'll have their parties and their conventions and all this, and they'll talk about it and they'll laugh about it and all of this. You see, they have a pretty good sense of humor about it. And they've discovered that they were wrong about everything.
Yeah, yes.
But then there was at the end of the episode yesterday evening was this Brian Greene comment that we discover that we're part of something far more wondrous than we could have imagined. And this is so.
Great mystery.
And this is so.
Yes.
But we actually have to look. So, okay, here. To the ever steadfast, worshipping me with love, I give the buddhi yoga by which they come to me. Here's what Swami Chinmayananda has to say. He says, withdrawal of one's identifications with the perceived world of objects, or the world of thoughts, or the world of ideas, all the same, can be successful only when one has discovered within oneself some other all-consuming thought to serve as an efficient substitute, yielding a satisfactory quota of absorbing happiness.
Oh.
And what he's speaking of will be different, generally speaking, for each of us. Some way to relate to the highest will be different. That's why the different paths of yoga. So when we talk, we'll share like this or this, and I'll share some examples of how to practice the presence of God, right? But each of us will have to have our own way of doing it. But some of the things that we talk about might resonate, and they might give us practices that we can draw upon. But you do come to the point where we must see, because we're dealing with a case where the truth is not the same as the way it feels. And so if you dive deeply into life, you're going to come to this point. And then you have a choice. Do I continue living in the matrix? Right? And accept the feelings as truth, knowing that everything here comes to naught. That nothing lasts, nothing remains, and that there's a little bit of happiness here, permeated by great suffering. And I hope that I'll get to a place within this dream where I find that ever happiness, but it's been my experience that it doesn't exist. And so, under the conditions, how long do we wish to follow the way it feels instead of the way it is? Right?
Discipline.
So, And from that, if you can come face to face with this, then you'll find the resolve
I have a
to
question
practice it. Oh,
on those feelings.
yeah.
It's just because I do guide myself a lot through feelings.
Oh, we know this. Yes. We understand. This is why we stay with this point.
So
It's for
like,
you.
when I have had those realizations, it feels so blissful. Like it's the feeling of love and nothing matters and all that. And that is my guidance. And so I guess
Be careful.
okay.
Be careful. Be careful. You have to place reason over the feelings, even that feeling. Although that feeling will come as a confirmation of reason.
Okay.
But still, it's a confirmation.
So I can trust it as long as it's a confirmation and not the first thing.
So, you had an experience 4 days ago.
Yes.
And Swami says, don't forget it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was a confirming experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what did you do? Don't forget what you did either.
I asked.
Yeah.
All right.
For a moment, I worshipped the Absolute.
Oh, I see it. Yeah. So I used my reason first, and then I got the feeling.
Then you got the confirmation.
Okay. I can get it.
And this is very important, by the way, for sadhaka. It's very, very important because otherwise we can easily fall off into bliss surfing.
Searching. Yeah.
Bliss surfing.
Surfing.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? That means I love that experience of bliss so much that that's all I want. And so then I live my life because now I have a taste. And so I live my life trying to duplicate it. That's very common. So that's why we say the feeling is a confirmation. Yes, beautiful. And it's an amazing feeling. Unity experiences are incredible. Incredible. But you also see that they don't remain.
And then you're like, oh,
But the truth remains.
The existence.
And all of the experiences are of the truth. They're all within the truth. You are within the truth. Verily, you are that truth. There's not a separate truth. There's one truth, which you are within. And so that's a statement of reason, having worked it out. And from here, it doesn't make any difference what the experience is. And the real bliss is your own self. It's your own self. The bliss is not an experience. You can experience bliss, but whenever you experience bliss, it is just your own self. You don't have to find it somewhere. It is simply your own self. You know it when you have controlled yourself completely and given yourself over completely. But will you experience it every moment? No, of course not. Because there's far more to experience. Is that helpful?
Oh, so much, yes.
Oh. Here we go. So, one can be successful only when one has discovered in oneself some other all-consuming thought to serve as an efficient substitute, yielding a satisfactory quota of abiding happiness. The bliss absolute self has enough captivating charm to engage the human attention entirely, and therefore to the extent to which an individual gets attached to the truth, to that extent he gains detachment from the painful embrace of the false. This is the conversation we were having yesterday as well, yes? So we talked about addictive mind in the morning, is that right? And how the mind by its nature is addictive. And if you take a little baby away from its mother at an early age, and it experiences the feeling of separation, and it will continue to seek for its mother, but it will do it wherever it is. In the same way, this mind is seeking to be attached to bliss. And so addiction to the Lord is to be encouraged, where addiction to substance or experience is to be discouraged. And so here Swamiji says it this way. He says, attach, detach, instead of detach, attach. And how to do, through a unity thought, through a unity way of thinking, through a unity way of relating to what's here, and seeing the object of your devotion, which is the one Lord, here, everywhere. Inside, outside. Inside, outside. Oh. And with some it's mantra. With some it's jnana. This, looking more deeply. Some of us will have an integral practice, so we won't have the same way of thinking, but the object, but the thoughts will all be leading to the divinity and devotion to the divinity. Some would sit in front of the altar and repeat inside, I am thine, all is thine. I am thine, all is thine. I have nothing, you have everything. I am thine. You speak today. I can't speak. So many different ways to do, you see. But they're all the ways to relate to that one wherever we are. Some will look at a tree and say, how beautiful you are, not talking to an individual tree. Right? But intentionally directing that thought to the absolute. Does that make sense? So, but as long as we continue to live life in a mundane way, relating to the things as things independently, then we're missing the mark. We're missing the point. And so meditation practice, remember, is single-pointed mind, practicing single-pointed mind. And so what he's speaking of here is essential. What is the practice of single-pointed mind? It's not blanking the mind, because that takes us into the blank. And it does aid. It actually really seriously does aid. But meditation practice wants to be every moment of every day. Meditation practice is not different from practicing the presence of God.
So if the sadhaka is doing the practices in the search of bliss, but not just bliss.
No, not in the search of bliss. Stop searching for bliss. You are bliss. Stop searching for it. You are it. Stop looking for it. You are it. See what's here. Learn to see what's here.
But if you're feeling this bliss all the time, then you can also be more of service all the time.
That's an assumption, Hari, but it's incorrect. You just have to be free of yourself. It doesn't make any difference if you're experiencing sorrow. You just have to be free of yourself. You have to be free of some notion that I have to get something, or I have to live a certain way in order to have something. That's all objective. That's all about an object that I'm going to get. You are it. You don't have to get it. You are it. You don't have to run after it. You can be present for whatever's here. So seeking mind, still wanting to seek and find something here, is still a distracted mind. It's not one-pointed. Correct? It's still distracted. What's being discussed here is a practice of one-pointed mind. Seeing what's here, using this mind to see and to devote to what's here. It's not the same thing at all.
You just said that to make a difference if you're experiencing sorrow, but I didn't catch that. Is that sorrow?
So there's everything here, dear.
You can still serve.
You can still serve, but
You don't cut yourself off from anything. You just see through it. Stop running away. Be present to what is, instead of your imagination about it.
That's when that sorrow will fade away.
Why does sorrow have to fade away? Why does it have to do anything? Why does anybody have to do anything for you to be happy? Why is happiness dependent upon... There's this beautiful discussion on Friday, yesterday, with Mataji, Ananta and Ananda. It's the same topic. Ananta, limitlessness. Ananda, bliss. Right? And Swami Dayananda was discussing. Do we remember something about that discussion? So the Atman is Ananta, limitless. Limitless. Infinite. We still have an idea of what is happiness. That's part of what we suffer from. We have an idea about what is happiness. What is your idea? Everybody's idea of it is different. The way you'll feel is different. So we superimpose our idea of what is happiness here. And then we're still running after it using the techniques of yoga. But we're still running after something that doesn't exist all the time. It's not ananta. So it's a temporal thing. It's an idea of some experience that I'm chasing the bliss. And no. None of these scriptures are saying that. Not one of them say that. They say you are bliss. Stop chasing it. Make the mind one-pointed. We'll pick up the commentary and continue. This is what he's speaking to. The bliss absolute self has enough captivating charm to engage the human attention entirely. So the Lord, or one's capital S self, has enough to captivate you. It's full. It has enough to captivate you. And even the scriptures and the ways of relating is enough to captivate us entirely. And therefore, to the extent to which an individual gets attached to truth, not to seeking, but to truth, to that extent he gains detachment from the painful embrace of the false. This Vedantic truth is indicated when Lord Krishna, as though in one and the same breath, states, and serving me with affection, invoking me with affectionate devotion. We have already indicated that love means identification. To the extent the ego identifies with the self, capital S self, to that extent is one a devotee of the truth. And when one becomes steadfast in it, one comes really to invoke the divinity that is now dormant in the bosom. To those individuals who are steadily contemplating upon the self in an atmosphere of love, delight, and contentment, identifying themselves with the infinite, right? No longer identifying, and this is a choice, isn't it? For it to be a choice, you're going to have to be aware of it as a choice. And then you have to practice. Right? Am I soul or am I body? So you have to practice it. And identification, we walk around saying this identification, in a way, it's so easy and it's so pervasive as well, isn't it? We have conversations in the world with people. Who are you? Well, I'm a woman, or I'm a man trapped in a woman's body, or I'm an engineer, a doctor, and then we say I'm a sadhaka. But you're not. It's just a term being used, right? What are you? Well, I love Padre Pio's answer to that question when he's asked. Do you remember?
I'm a mystery unto myself.
I'm a mystery even unto myself.
That's the spirit. Yes.
Can you catch the identification there?
Yeah.
So he's identified as soul, and soul's a great mystery. Right? Even to this intellect, the soul is a mystery. The soul remains a mystery.
Intellect speaking. Makes sense.
It is the intellect speaking. That's exactly good
The
catch.
intellect wouldn't have a way to say.
That's a good catch, yeah. So our identity is a choice, and we do, as we go through this life, we keep picking different identities. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
You were not identified as a mother, and then one day you were. It's a new identity. We're identified as a child, and then we're identified as a husband or a wife, or jaded, or alone, or needful, or whatever it is. You see, it comes easily. Yeah. It comes easily. It's slipped in without you even noticing it.
You're the one who took possession. Yes.
I mean, really, it just slipped in without you even noticing it. And you didn't notice the power of it.
Yeah.
And you didn't notice how it would rule you. And in the same way, when you identify yourself with the absolute instead of these limited things, then it rules you. And you integrate. And suffering is done. Because you've never been a woman or a man or a mother. There's one mother. And the one mother is universal. And she simply comes through you at the right time and mothers. Is it so? There's one mother, father. And so if you can see it, and this is what's being discussed, and if you can devote to it, recognizing where does motherhood come from?
The mother.
Right? It's not a limited function, is it?
No.
No. It's something great and grand and glorious, isn't it?
Yeah.
Did you invent it? No. It existed already. Your mother tapped into the same, and her mother tapped into the same. Is it so? And the mothers before that, all of the mothers. And that's the universal that they're tapping into, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
See, another way to see it.
That makes sense. Sometimes I see the Sangha of my children, and that's, I realize I cry out of love, and I realize now that it's me tuning into that mother, universal mother.
Yeah. The universal mother. Because that's who's here, you see. You see? When you're with Theo, that's who's here. Is it so? So is it true then that this is another way to relate to the Absolute? To practice the presence of God?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So it's a miracle. There are so many. And that's what we say. Even conversationally, they'll arise. Different ways to practice. And there's this question of identity. So when the ego identifies, not with itself, not with this body, but with that Absolute, with the highest, the capital S self. Capital S self. Then and that identity is, as Swamiji said, and he says, as we've discussed before, we haven't discussed so much here, that identity is love. It's really the same. If you catch it, later on, Swamiji gives this beautiful example of love, which is what we think of as self-love, little s. When you stub your toe, you can just relate. Has everybody stubbed their toe? Anybody not ever stubbed a toe? So when you stub your toe, what happens?
Oh, you tend to it.
You immediately tend to it and you ask no qualifying questions whatsoever. You don't check and see what color that toe is, or what it believes, or you're a Republican or a Democrat, or do I like you right now? I don't even like you. I'm not going to tend to you. None of that. You just immediately tend to it. So that's love.
Yeah.
Mother's love is love, and the mother becomes the mother. That's a change in identity, and the child becomes the child, and the mother sees the child as part of her, and therefore mother's love flows naturally. So love and identity, he's saying, are actually the same. So if you identify with the universal, you can't help but love all, you see. Because you'll see yourself everywhere, because you'll see the universal everywhere. That's all it is. In a way, it's very simple. We're switching identity. But we're having to come to the place where we can do it, and we're having to have the tools with which to do it. Because your identity is also a mental creation. It's a thought. It's an idea. So to those individuals who are steadily contemplating upon the self in an atmosphere of love, delight, and contentment, identifying themselves with the infinite, to them the Lord promises, I give that buddhi yoga by which they can come unto me. So in the practice, So in the practice comes the firmness, the firm realization. And the doubt is resolved and satisfied. And one comes to live in God. That's buddhi yoga. That's good for this morning. It doesn't mean that to the intellect that God is understood in any kind of detail. It doesn't mean that at all. It just means that God becomes an unceasing reality, the unceasing reality, with no momentary pause in the reality. So the mind becomes firm in the knowledge that we are always in the presence, inside and out. So this is Buddhi Yoga. When the firmness is there, the doubt is resolved, and the actual lived experience is living in God. And the kingdom is here. And it's always been here.
Yeah.
There was never a time when it was not here. Yet there was a time when we didn't see it. Okay, let's close with final prayers and arati, page 174. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanam Mritor Mukshiyamam Mritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanam Mritor Mukshiyamam Mritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanam Mritor Mukshiyamam Mritat Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O adorable Lord of mercy and love, let us abide in Thee forever and ever. Humble Sakura Shivananda Maharaja ki, and for all of the saints and sages of all the traditions. That's right.